One thing all web design projects I work on have in common is the process I go by. In this video I wanted to do a little breakdown of the website I designed for Custo. The website won Site of the Day over on awards, which is super cool, and I wanted to share the process with you guys. Every project has unique things to the process, but for this one I'll mainly go over the general process, otherwise this video will become way too long. I boiled it down to these 5 points: discovery, wireframing, design and animation, developer collaboration, and website go live. So let's get into it by talking about the discovery phase first. Every project is different in the beginning. Some clients have a full-blown briefing, others have nothing. With Custo it was the latter. So I started doing some research on websites that were in a similar space, selling tech lifestyle products, and made a list of questions to ask. The questions I ask in the beginning of the project are in 3 categories: business, art direction, and marketing. I'll go over some of the questions I always ask for each category. In the business category, good ones are: what is driving this design request and what is the main goal for the website? In the art direction one, there's what is the personality of the brand and what are some interests, hobbies, or favorite brands of the target audience. And in the last category, these are 2 good marketing questions to ask. Are you planning on doing any sorts of social media or Google ads? And where will the main traffic stream come from? I could make a full video on this segment alone, so if you would be interested in that, be sure to let me know. I'll also link to a previous newsletter I wrote about 12 questions I ask before any project, so you can reference that if you want. With the information I gathered from all the questions asked in the discovery phase, it was time to continue into the wireframing phase. The main goal they had for the website at the time was selling pre-orders, so they had a proof of concept for the people investing in a company. That's why I'll see the pre-order button on every page separate from the nav, so it gets a little bit more attention. The main pages for the first version of this website were the home page, the product page, how it works page, about, and the pre-order page. I always do low fidelity wireframing, where it's just focusing on what sections go on what page, what's their purpose, and if they have a call to action, where it will link to. This way, there's no chance the clients get confused, thinking they're already looking at some design aspects. Working this way, I can go faster through wireframing while keeping all the creative freedom for the design phase. So speaking of the design phase, let's move into that one. With the blueprint or wireframe for the website now agreed on by the client, it was time to get into the design phase. There are 3 things I want to touch on for this phase, and those are art direction, interaction design or animation, and then desktop and mobile. Let's start with art direction. In this phase, I'm designing the first thing to present to the client to get buy-in on the visual direction. Usually this is the homepage. Let's have a look at how I got to the visual direction for the Custo site. So we didn't have any visuals yet when I started on the design, so the first thing I did was looking online for some visuals that I could use. I was specifically looking for 2 types of visuals. The first one was more like a lifestyle image, where we have like the mailbox in a setting. The other was a 3D model. Like you can see, I tried the image approach first, but it felt a little generic and not memorable, so I quickly shifted to the 3D model. I really liked how the 3D model looked, so I started playing around with this one, and from here on it was basically just playing around with like the mask or like the background image, the background color I had for the 3D model. And it was in this stage where I tried like an almost extreme contrast with the logo, that I really started to connect with it. So that's basically how this hero section came to be. What I usually do after the hero section is just creating one section below it, where I'm just testing out the type of text styles to see how they work together. As you can see, I've called this section the design and animation phase, because for me they go hand in hand. So let's talk about the second one, interaction design or animation. So I almost never first design everything and then animate it. For me, design can inform animation, but it can also be the other way around, where the animation influences the design. When I have the hero section designed, I usually create a loading animation for it. Next is just designing the full homepage together with a couple of animations to present a full vision to the client. For Custo, I created a loading animation and some other animations that explained my vision for what I had in mind for those sections. The last thing I want to talk about in this phase is desktop and mobile. This is pretty straightforward and basically means that from when I get the buy-in from the client and we agree on visual direction and animation, I'll just go ahead and design all the other pages and then convert them into mobile designs. So when everything is agreed on here, the next thing we'll have to do is get everything ready for the developer. Once everything is agreed on by the client, it's time to get the design built. I never go for a hard handoff where I'll never speak to the dev. I think the best work comes from collaboration, so it's best to go through everything together with the developer and explain your reasoning in some sections. What I always prepare here is a type scale for desktop and mobile, where all the text styles are nicely laid out. Another thing that's important to communicate is the grid you've used. When everything is aligned to a grid, the developer can use the same positioning as you used on your grid, and the amount of front-end mistake will dramatically be less. For the desktop, I use a 12-column grid, which I feel like is the most versatile one, and I think the most used one probably. For mobile design, I always go for a 6-column grid. In this last phase before the website goes live, there are a couple of things still to do. The first one is QA, or quality assurance. This is basically running through the front end, looking for any mistakes the dev might have made on the front end and pointing them all out. Once the front end is completely perfect, the next thing to do is guiding the client with the content for the website. Here it could be useful to make a checklist for the client with everything they still need to do. These are things like getting the copy ready and inputted inside of the website, getting the images ready and inputted in the website, making sure forms submit to the right email addresses and stuff like that. After that's all done, it's time to go live. This is a pretty zoomed out view of the process. I can easily talk an hour about all the small things that were specific for this project, like the art direction for the 3D models, collaborating with the 3D artist, finding a good photographer, the creative direction for the photo shoot and stuff like that. But I wanted this video to be a bit more easy to digest and not be an hour long. So hopefully it has been somewhat helpful to you. If there are things you might have questions about or other things you want me to cover here, be sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if you want to see more of this type of content, feel free to subscribe. So with that, thanks for watching. Peace.